to, let's call it the real art world. They're actually doing things in a creative environment that's outside of the educational environment. And I was talking to them yesterday, and they seem to come from a very diverse range of backgrounds.
But one of the things that this article says is that the only way into most of these professions is as an intern, unpaid intern, where you get the experience and then you can get into it. But to be able to do that, you've got to have money.
You've got to have private income, haven't you?
And or parents who will actually be able to afford to keep you. And keeping people in London is not cheap.
But this is how the law is working, isn't it, now with barristers, isn't it? We're talking about 12,000 barristers. But you've got to have a private means or a good income from somewhere to be able to get into barristership now, to get into chambers.
We've got, on our film, we've got about 5 people who are working for nothing. And they're working for nothing simply because they just want to get some experience. They haven't got any experience, but the next thing they go to, they say, well, I worked on the 2025 shoot, and they've got some experience, so they become worth something. The bottom line is they're not worth us paying them any money because they're actually costing us money in terms of, we've got to show them what to do, and it takes time. So it's a good deal. We get things called runners. That's the technical name for them. They're runners, and that's it could be gophers, but we call them runners. And they just run around doing things, and they're gaining lots of experience. And it's a really, I feel like we're really contributing to exposing young people to the art of filmmaking as a result of not having any barriers.
Well, I don't disagree that that's a route in, but what I'm saying is that there needs to be support mechanisms that back that up.
Well, and the college, Milton Keynes College, is doing precisely that. So, although I can criticise, it's easy to criticise, but it's also worth praising the people that are doing a damn good job.
Absolutely, and I'm not saying don't do it. What I'm highlighting is a trend that says we're only selecting from a very narrow band, and what we need to do is be selecting from a very broad band.
I don't think that's the case. I think I'm really against positive discrimination of any form. And what I'd really like to see is people who've got the gumption to say, that's what I want to do, and they will find a way of doing it.
So when you look at journalism, and you look at all the people who are reporting politics on the BBC, or you look at who are writing in the Times, or you're looking who are writing in various magazines, they are all very much of the same background. Is that right?
No.
Yes.
No.
It is. It's not the background, it's the educational standard. You have to reach a certain standard of education before you can do certain jobs.
Yeah, but you don't have to go to university to be educated, do you? You can be educated, you can be
to university, but generally, in today's world, it is perceived that a university education does give you the opportunity to take certain careers.
The point I'm making, Alan, is there's not the diversity that there once was, and it's the diversity and difference of opinion that actually makes things better.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you, but I don't agree that there isn't opportunities for young people. My skills, my knowledge is limited to Milton Keynes, but Milton Keynes seems to be full of opportunities for young people.
Well, as EastEnders says, we're the land of opportunity. But we try to actually make sure that those barriers are broken down to give people opportunities. And what I'm saying is that unless we actually tackle those barriers, the trend is that within 5-10 years' time, we will not be in a position that people can get into those.
I think one of the things. I mean, you got your mainstream political parties in Milton Keynes, and they argue the toss about all sorts of things. But there are certain areas where they do work together, and that's more often than not they're working together, and they're working together for the benefit of particularly the young people of Milton Keynes. And it's where I get some sort of. I look at the politicians and I go, you're all barking, except for when you're actually working together. When you're arguing the toss with each other, they drive me nuts.
In Milton Keynes, the political parties tend to agree on about 80% of things.
Yeah.
There's 10% where they agree the question but don't agree the answer, and there's another 10% where they don't agree. But that 10% is needed to create a consensus 3 or 4 years down the line.
Yeah, and mostly it's in their own party that they don't agree with each other.
But are you saying that we're leading the way in Milton Keynes by overcoming these barriers, whereas...
No, I'm saying that we're actually conscious that there are barriers that need to be broken down, because we don't have a number of the established routes. We're having to create them, and because we're having to create them, we're creating them in a much better way. But if you go to London and have to try and exist in London you need the money to be able to get in, and that's the problem. Is how do you actually support yourself while you're trying to make your breakthrough? It used to be that you could have periods on the dole, you could have periods as a waitress or a
out of work actors. Yeah.
And there's an old story of I think it's Gielgud, who when he went to a restaurant, he didn't say waiter, he said actor. But the point is that whereas that in a few years ago was a much wider group of people that they could select from, it's becoming narrower, and that's the problem.
And do you think this is a deliberate ploy?
No, I don't. I think it's just the way we're making decisions. So, for example, on the dole, the unemployment officers, if you're not there ready for work at every single moment in time, you lose your benefit. Now, if you're an actor trying to find a way to actually become an actor, when you go to rehearsal, that's classed as no longer looking for work.
Right.
So you lose your benefits.
Yeah, indeed.
So it's that kind of thing
that again, yeah. But
the Conservative administration has clamped down on the whole benefits packages far too hard in many areas, and the ridiculous bedroom tax is probably the sits at the top in my opinion.
Is IDS the right person to be looking at this? I don't think so.
Clearly, I mean, it was clearly a stupid thing before they announced it and implemented it. It's proved to be a stupid thing, and it seems that the only way you can hold them to account, I suppose, is going to be at the next election.
Well, I remember Danny Alexander saying that people who were moaning about the bedroom tax, it's all local council's fault, and he was the Lib Dem Chief Secretary of the Treasury.
Well, he may well have done, and any Lib Dem that supported the bedroom tax deserves a good talking to, because it was absolutely ridiculous. There's so much in terms of politicians that are trying their hardest to cover up the failings of previous governments in not building enough houses in this country.
Well, what about the latest thing about first-time buyers are going to be given a fifth off? Well, they still won't be able to afford it, but surely you're
What I thought was interesting about that story was he saying that we're going to have 100,000 houses. Well, we didn't build 100,000 houses in the whole country last year.
Where are they coming from?
Exactly, and when Milton Keynes goes to the government and says, we will build the houses, and they say, fine, and then they take the money away from us on the other hand, it's that joined-up thinking you need, and that support.
Well, that's certainly what is lacking in this country, isn't it, throughout?
What we've got to do is, first of all, we've got to start providing land for building houses at a sensible rate. When a plot of land to build a new house is costing £60,000 before you lay a brick, no wonder houses are coming. It's not possible for young people to get on the housing ladder, so to speak. We should be building more houses for rent. We need to take the steam out of the housing market. I think personally it's probably just peaking now. I think we're going to see a downturn. And I think the government are a bit fed up because it's peaked a little bit early for them. Because of some of the things they did 3 or 4 years ago with this Help to Buy scheme, which was designed to sort of increase the feel-good factor for all those people that have actually got houses, so that they didn't see negative equity, to keep the prices going. And because the last thing most people want who've got houses is to see negative equity building up in their houses. That's going to be a real problem for them. But actually, to rebalance the housing market, there's going to have to be a period of negative equity in those.
Yeah.
We've got to see.
It's actually worse than that, because the housing market in London is totally distorted compared to the housing market in other parts of the country.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you remember the Westminster scandal about 20 years ago where they sold off all the council houses. One of those council houses this year will actually sell for over £1 million.
Crazy, isn't it?
Which is astronomically stupid.
Well, they've got council flats in Hampstead, haven't they, up by the Spaniards Inn there, which they reckon are the most expensive council flats in the country. And they were, I don't know how much they were going for something like about 150,000 rent a year, I believe.
It's absolutely
crazy. The whole situation's got out of hand, and we've got to stop thinking about housing as this economic element of our lives and start thinking about the places that we live as a home, and not a sort of a reservoir of cash, because it's not real money, it's funny money. And I've been in a situation where it's gone down. I've seen houses drop, I've seen lives ruined as a result of it, and it's not that long ago, it's only 20 years ago when we had that big bust, and thousands and thousands of people lost their homes because it had all got overinflated. There were comedians on television saying, "Oh, get the equity out of your house and go and have a fantastic holiday." 3 months later, these same people who had their fantastic holiday because they'd taken the equity out of their house ended up in a situation because of the inflation where they couldn't actually pay their mortgages.
Yeah, that's right.
And the equity had gone because the value of the house had dropped so much. And we're heading straight back into that situation.
And the Governor of the Bank of England has already warned that interest rates are going to go up in the near future.
Yeah.
And that's very worrying because there's a lot of people who are just about struggling to pay their mortgages at the moment.
Well, people have overextended themselves, and the concept that you can have a 5 times income mortgage is ludicrous. Nobody can afford to pay a mortgage like that. They might be able to scrimp and save just to get past, but if we put 0.5% on the interest rates, that's it. They are
crippled, aren't they?
There's a House Commons Library service came out saying about comparing every parliament since Disraeli with the average weekly earnings. And this Parliament is the worst loss of earnings. Most of the parliaments, you actually improved your earnings each week. But this one is the only one since Disraeli that's actually had a massive loss of our average weekly earnings. Which, again, in the context of house prices going up, would be a disaster.
Absolutely, yeah. We're running out of time, aren't we?
Yes, you are. Yeah, 3 minutes to go.
3 minutes to go. What should we go? Schools forced to ration meals. Pupils get just 1 chicken nugget each for lunch under new free school meals targets. It emerged yesterday. Council chiefs in Birmingham said that tight budget controls forced staff to ration portions at the school which has not been named. An extra 163,208 children in the West Midlands have free meals after the policy was introduced for all children aged 4 to 7 earlier this month. So another thing that's not working, is it? Not joined up thinking again.
Well, I think it's an excellent policy.
One nugget keeps them slim.
I don't think that children should be fed too much, but while they're at school, because they'll just feel sleepy and they'll fall asleep in their lessons.
That's just a head's end.
Yes.
So when Nick Clegg announced this policy without consulting anybody and said it would all be working by this September, he was deluding himself, was he?
Clearly. I mean, I think the path to ridiculous situations is paved with good intentions. I do believe that Nick had good intentions, but unfortunately it just hasn't quite worked out the way it was planned.
No. I think it's time to go, gents.
It is.
We'll see you next
So
week.
Goodbye from us.
And goodbye from everybody here.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.
You go your way, and I'll go mine. But in the meantime, when we're together,